They say Christmas is about joy, togetherness, and love. But what happens when someone shows up every year just to remind you of everything you don't have? What if the loudest sound in the room isn't the carols? It's the judgment behind a smirk. My name is Kayla, and for most of my life, I believed the holidays were sacred. Even when money was tight, and the house was cold, and the lights were blinking half dead, my mom made Christmas feel like magic. She was a waitress at Miller's Diner, the kind that remembered regulars' orders by heart and brought home leftover pie in her purse. She didn't have much, but she had grit, and heart, and an uncanny ability to stretch $20 into a holiday feast. We didn't grow up with gifts piled under a tree. Sometimes we only had one or two each, if any. I remember one Christmas when I was 8, she gave me a used art set from the Goodwill. It was missing the green marker, and the crayons were dull, but I held it like it was treasure. Because to me, it was. Because she made it feel like it was. But there was always one person who could tear all of that down with just a look. My mom's older sister, Denise. Aunt Denise wasn't always cruel. At least, not obviously. She was more practiced than that. She had a way of turning kindness into condescension. She didn't call us poor outright. She didn't have to. It was in the way she wrinkled her nose when she walked into our house, like she was stepping into a different world. It was in the offhand comments like, "Oh, I forgot people still drink powdered hot chocolate," or "You made that pie." That's brave. She married up. Her husband owned a dealership chain, and suddenly, she started showing up to family dinners in heels that clicked like punctuation marks on the hardwood floor. Her hair, always perfectly blown out. Her perfume smelling like something you needed a passport to buy. Every Christmas, she'd arrive late to Grandma's house in her luxury SUV, with her kids dressed like catalog models and her arms filled with branded shopping bags. She brought gifts for everyone but made sure the price tags were just barely still attached. And every time she opened her mouth, she reminded us, intentionally or not, that we didn't belong in her world. But the Christmas when I was 17? That was the one I'll never forget. It had been a brutal year. My dad died that March. A sudden stroke, out of nowhere. One minute he was making pancakes in the kitchen, the next he was gone. Just like that. We'd barely scraped by after. The bills piled up. Mom started working double shifts. I got a job shelving books at the library after school. Even my little brother started collecting cans for change. But still, Mom insisted we celebrate Christmas. She saved up for weeks and bought yarn to crochet scarves for the family. She found a half-dead tree on clearance and brought it home, saying, "It just needs love," like Charlie Brown's Little Pine. We wrapped homemade cookies in plastic wrap and tied them with red ribbon. We played music on an old speaker that cut in and out and wore matching pajamas from last year. It wasn't much, but it was ours. I remember walking into Grandma's living room that evening, holding the cookies and scarves we'd made, and feeling, despite everything, hopeful, like maybe Christmas could still be good. Until Denise walked in. She arrived in a new red coat, with a fur collar that screamed expensive. Her kids each carried 2 gifts stacked in a tower. She greeted Grandma with an air kiss, gave Mom a brief nod, and then glanced at our little tree. The pause was brief, but loud. Then she smiled. That trademark smile she reserved for moments when she wanted to be mean without actually being quoted. "Well," she said, her eyes scanning the room, "maybe Christmas isn't for everyone. I mean, if you can't afford to celebrate, why try at all?" The air in the room changed. No one said a word. My cousins chuckled under their breath. My uncle looked at the ground. Even Grandma, the one who used to scold us for saying dang, said nothing. Mom just kept stirring her cider like she hadn't heard her own sister humiliate her in front of the whole family. And me? I felt something crack inside my chest. It wasn't just anger. It was shame. It was watching my mother, who had worked herself half to death to give us some semblance of joy, shrink in her chair like a failure. It was realizing that in Denise's world, effort didn't count. Only credit card limits did. I looked down at the scarf I had made for Denise. Pale blue. Soft yarn. Took me 6 hours between school and work. I quietly slid it back into my bag. That was the moment everything changed. I didn't say anything out loud.
Not yet.
But I made a promise to myself, right there in that dim living room, with the scent of cinnamon and judgment thick in the air. One day, I'll make her feel just as small. One day, she'll remember who she called poor. And I won't need a single dollar to do it. Because I knew something that Denise never would. Some people wear wealth like armor.
But I
wore resilience. And that was worth more than anything she could fit in a Nordstrom bag. They say time heals everything. But grief doesn't follow a calendar. And bitterness? Bitterness has a long memory and a cozy chair in the back of your mind. That Christmas stayed with me. My aunt's words weren't just cruel. They were surgical. She didn't yell. She didn't even raise her voice. But she cut deep enough to leave a scar. Not the kind you see, but the kind that throbs when you walk into a department store and realize everything is out of your budget. The kind that flares up when you're filling up your gas tank and watching the number tick up faster than your paycheck. After that day, I never looked at her the same. I didn't hate her. I wasn't raised to hate people. But I saw her clearly now. Aunt Denise didn't make people feel small out of malice. She did it because it made her feel big. And I decided then, I wasn't going to beg for a seat at her table. I'd build my own. The years that followed were hard. Dad wasn't around to walk me through college applications, and Mom was still doing back-to-back shifts. I got into a state school on scholarship, worked at the bookstore, and ate more ramen than any human probably should. But I kept pushing. I graduated at 23 with a degree in supply chain management, and no one to clap for me except Mom and my little brother Marcus, who shouted my name from the nosebleed seats and embarrassed me in the best way. I got a job at a logistics company in Kansas City. Nothing glamorous. A gray cubicle, stale coffee, coworkers who never refilled the printer tray. But it was stable. It was mine. And ironically, it was the perfect place for a quiet little plan to grow. See, Aunt Denise had started a blog during the pandemic, High Heel Homemaker. A mix of lifestyle tips, lukewarm recipes, and bad advice she passed off as inspiration. Her whole brand was built around aspirational luxury. Effortless elegance, she called it. But there's nothing elegant about someone who returns more than they keep. Thanks to my job, I had access to tracking data. Nothing creepy or illegal, just insights into shipping trends, return rates, consumer habits. But guess what name popped up a lot in our system? Denise H. Delaney. She was sending back a lot of items from Walmart. And not just once. Regularly. Items listed under her blog's fake luxury recommendations turned out to be repackaged bargain bin finds. Air fryers returned after one review. Makeup palettes used once for a photo op and sent back the next day. Dresses ordered in 3 sizes and returned all but one, then posted with hashtag gifted on her Instagram. At first, I just laughed. Then I felt something shift. Because for someone who looked down on poor people, she sure knew her way around a rollback deal. And that's when it hit me. I didn't need to scream to get revenge. I just needed receipts. Literally. So I started collecting them. Not in a stalker kind of way, just the ones that came through our system with her name. The public stuff. Itemized slips of consumer hypocrisy. Every $12.97 sweater she returned. Every off-brand blender she tried to pass off as French. I printed them slowly, carefully. Highlighted the items. Labeled them with dates. Built a little stack month by month. I kept them in a file at home labeled Exhibit A, The Real Denise. It wasn't about shaming her publicly or ruining her reputation. It was about letting her know, quietly, elegantly, that I remembered. That I saw her. I waited 2 years. I needed the right moment. And it came one December when Grandma called and said, "We're doing Christmas Eve dinner again this year, same as old times." Denise said she'll be there. Of course she did. That week I walked into a fancy little boutique near the plaza. One of those places that charged $60 for a candle and $300 for a sweater you could knit at home. I didn't buy anything. I just asked for an empty gift box. Told the girl at the counter it was for something meaningful. She gave me one with a velvet lining and gold trim. I went home, placed every receipt in it, arranged like delicate tissue paper. Then I wrapped the box in metallic foil and tied it with a wide satin bow. I even printed a card that said, "To the woman who taught me that appearances can be deceiving. With love and savings, Kayla." Mom saw it under the tree that morning and asked, "Who's the fancy one for?" I just smiled. A lesson overdue. When we arrived at Grandma's house that night, I was ready. Denise swept in late, as always, draped in white cashmere, pretending it was effortless. She handed out gift bags from Sephora and Coach, gave Mom a candle labeled Winter Pine and told her, "Thought you'd like something fresh." Mom, being Mom, just said thank you. When it was my turn, I handed Denise the gold-wrapped box. Her eyes lit up. "Kayla, you didn't have to." I shrugged.
But I wanted to.
She held it in both hands, turning it like treasure. And that's when I saw it, the same smirk from years ago. The one that said, "You've finally caught up. Oh, sweetie, you have no idea what's coming." The room smelled like cinnamon, ham glaze, and tension. The kind of tension that hides in small smiles and polite nods, holiday tension. Fake peace for the sake of Grandma's old heart. Everyone had gathered in the living room after dinner to exchange gifts. My little cousins were tearing through wrapping paper like it owed them money. My mom sat next to me, quietly folding the ribbon from her candle. Grandma was dozing in her armchair, and the TV was playing some Hallmark Christmas movie none of us were really watching. And then there was Denise. She was perched on the edge of the couch like she was royalty, her knees crossed at the perfect angle, the bow on her headband refusing to move out of place. That gold box I'd handed her earlier sat untouched in her lap, like a little ticking bomb wrapped in satin. She looked over at me and said, "Can I open this now? Or is it one of those sentimental keepsakes I'm supposed to cry over in private?" I smiled, cool and steady.
Please.
"Open it now. I want everyone to see." That caught a few eyes. My uncle turned his head. Mom's eyebrows lifted. Even Marcus looked up from his phone. Denise gave a theatrical little gasp and started peeling back the paper. Slow, elegant, like she wanted to savor the moment. She lifted the lid of the box and paused. Her smile faltered, just a fraction, but I caught it. Inside, stacked like love letters, were 6 months' worth of receipts. Walmart, Target, Amazon, store brand labels, return slips, refund confirmations, highlighted with neon precision. It took her a beat. She blinked once,
Twice.
and then gave a short, clipped laugh. "What is this?" I tilted my head, keeping my voice light. "I thought you'd appreciate a record of your luxury holiday haul. A curated collection. A lifestyle archive." She pulled out the top receipt, scanned it quickly. "I don't understand. This is personal." "It's public, actually," I said gently. "Returns processed through third-party logistics. That's what I do now. For work. Supply chain, inventory systems, product flow. You'd be surprised what we see." Now, everyone was watching. My cousin Olivia leaned forward, trying to read a receipt over her mom's shoulder. "Mom, is that the blender you posted last month?" Denise shot her a look. "Of course not. This is ridiculous." I stayed calm, sipping my cider like it was just another Wednesday. "It's okay, Aunt Denise. We all know influencer culture thrives on a little illusion. But I couldn't help thinking about that Christmas, you remember? The one where you said maybe people like us shouldn't celebrate if we couldn't afford to." Mom stiffened beside me. Denise's face froze. "So I thought," I continued, "what better gift than showing you that we actually do have things in common. We both love a good deal. A clearance sale. A return policy." The silence in the room had a pulse. Denise tried to recover. "You think this is funny? You dug up receipts like some kind of stalker and wrapped them as a gift." "No," I said. "I wrapped them as a reminder." My voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "Because that Christmas," I said, looking at her directly, "you didn't just insult my mom. You humiliated her. You took her effort and made it a punchline. And we sat there in silence because you had more money, better clothes, and fancier wrapping paper. But underneath all that, you were doing the same things we were, just hiding it better. I felt the heat rising in my chest, but I didn't let it crack my voice. You made us feel less for struggling. But you were out here returning blenders and reselling Walmart makeup as exclusive finds. So no, I didn't get you a purse or a bottle of wine this year. I got you something better. I leaned forward slightly. The truth. No one moved for a full 10 seconds. The only sound in the room was the flickering of Grandma's old fireplace DVD. Then Marcus gave a low whistle. Damn, Kayla. You really gift-wrapped the receipts. I even added bows. I said. She deserves presentation. My mom didn't say anything at first. She looked stunned. Embarrassed, maybe. But also proud. Her hand slid across the couch and squeezed mine. Denise, meanwhile, was unraveling. I can't believe you'd do this in front of the family. How vindictive. How petty. I stood up, calm and steady. Petty, I said, would have been selling your receipts to one of those gossip sites. Petty would have been tagging you on social media with #BudgetQueen. But this was personal, private, between us. Like your little comment that Christmas. She stood too, gripping the box tightly. You'll regret this. No, I said, looking her in the eye. I already spent too many years regretting staying quiet. She stormed out minutes later.
Didn't even say goodbye to Grandma.
That night, after the dishes were done and most of the cousins had gone home, my mom and I sat alone in the living room. The glow from the tree made everything look soft, quiet. She broke the silence first. You didn't have to do that, Kayla. I know, I said.
But I needed to.
She reached over and pushed a loose curl from my face. She needed it too. I looked down at the empty gift box beside the couch. For the first time in years, Christmas didn't feel like something I had to survive. It felt like something I'd reclaimed. You'd think that after all that drama, I'd feel triumphant. I didn't. Not right away. Even after Denise stormed out of Grandma's house and left a trail of designer perfume in her wake, I didn't feel like I'd won anything. I wasn't the villain and I wasn't the hero either. I was just tired. Tired of holding in years of resentment. Tired of pretending we were a happy family when some of us were just better at hiding the cracks. But that's the funny thing about truth. It doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it just lands in the room and settles like dust. The next day, I woke up to silence. No texts from Denise. No calls from anyone else. Just Mom in the kitchen making pancakes and humming to herself. Off-key as usual, but happy. I hadn't seen her that light in a long time. I guess Christmas breakfast is back on the menu, she said, flipping a pancake like it was the most natural thing in the world. And just like that, I realized something. I didn't need closure from Denise. I'd already gotten it from the one person who mattered most.
Mom.
A week passed. Then 2. Then it was New Year's, and the only thing that dropped harder than the ball in Times Square was Denise's follower count. Apparently, someone else, maybe a blog rival, maybe an angry shopper, who knows, got wind of her return history and called her out. Subtle, but brutal. A thread of side-by-side photos. Luxury haul versus return to Walmart 48 hours later. Her high-heel homemaker brand took a nosedive. Suddenly, the comments on her posts weren't full of admiration. They were full of questions. Didn't you say this was gifted? Why are you always returning everything? Girl, is that sweater from the clearance rack at Kohl's? She posted a statement, of course. Some overly filtered, long-winded video with a sad violin track about how people were jealous of her journey and trying to destroy a woman's success. But the internet isn't as forgiving as a family dinner table. And Denise? She was reaping what she'd spent years sowing. I didn't gloat. I didn't even share the thread. Because at the end of the day, that wasn't my revenge. Mine happened in that living room, with my mom beside me and a stack of Walmart receipts wrapped in gold foil. A month later, Denise called me. I stared at her name on my screen for a good 2 minutes before I answered. I didn't know what I expected, maybe tears, maybe yelling. But what I got was even stranger. Kayla, she said, her voice quiet. I suppose I had that coming. I said nothing. I just wanted to let you know. I never forgot that Christmas. Not the one this year. The one with the folding table. Still, I said nothing. I wasn't trying to be cruel, she said. I don't know. I thought I was being honest. I finally spoke. Honest would have been, thank you for trying. Not, maybe you shouldn't celebrate. She was silent for a beat. Then she said, you're right. That surprised me more than anything. I lost a few sponsors, she added. Not that you care. I don't, I said gently. There was another long pause. You're sharper than I gave you credit for, Kayla. Always were. Maybe I was a little jealous. Your mom raised a daughter who doesn't need to pretend. And that was probably the most honest thing she'd ever said. I'm not calling to apologize, she added, her voice back to that crisp edge. But I do respect the game. That gift? Cold-blooded.
Smart.
Painfully accurate. I almost laughed. Almost. Well, I said, I guess even discount truth stings if you unwrap it the right way. She chuckled. Touché. We hung up not long after. No closure. No heartfelt reunion. Just mutual awareness. She wouldn't cross that line again. And I wouldn't have to pretend to admire her anymore. It was a strange piece, but a piece nonetheless. That spring, I finally bought Mom something she'd never asked for but always wanted, a new dining table. Solid wood, 6 seats, the kind you pass down. She cried when it arrived, said it was too much. I told her it was right on time. We hosted Easter brunch that year. Real plates, fresh flowers, laughing cousins. No tension. Denise didn't come, but Grandma did. And she pulled me aside at the end, held my hand with those soft, papery fingers, and whispered, whatever you did this year, baby, thank you. You brought us back. I hugged her a little tighter than usual, because maybe I hadn't set out to fix anything. But somehow, by standing up, by refusing to stay small, I'd made room for something bigger than revenge. Respect. It's been 3 years now. Denise is still around, still doing her thing, but quieter. Her blog is mostly recipes now. No more #gifted handbags. No more effortless elegance. Just crock-pot chili and coupons. She doesn't speak to me much. And that's fine. Because I didn't get her fired. I didn't post her receipts online. I didn't ruin her life. I just held up a mirror and let her see herself clearly. The rest, she did on her own. As for me, I'm good. I've got a decent job, a mom who finally holds her head high, and a table full of people who laugh loud and love harder. And every Christmas since, we celebrate like we never missed a beat. No shame. No folded tables. Just joy. And the knowledge that sometimes the best revenge is finally having nothing to prove. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Your support means everything. If this story touched you or made you think, please subscribe to our channel for more real, powerful stories.